Hi everyone. It's kind of crazy that this is the last discussion post. It's very exciting. Um, I've really enjoyed this semester, and it's really been nice to have something that kind of let us reflect. And throughout my classes last fall and this semester, I've learned that higher education is constantly changing. And so when I look at sort of the future of higher education, while you can still see traditional trends, in that higher education is still kind of the bridge between adolescence and adulthood, where students take ownership and responsibility of themselves and their actions and their future. Um, I still have really four trends that I see being the really future and priority that administrators need to take care of. But the first is that professionals need to stay up to date on marketing and communication strategy. What we've learned from the readings is that students are constantly changing how they respond to things, how they react to marketing campaigns, and the college student is changing in the way they communicate their expectations in a similar way that the demographic of the college student has changed so much as well. And I think that, what schools are trying to battle is students' attention spans are that of what they see on TikTok and Instagram stories. And so students may not be paying attention to the important deadlines and things that they need to meet. And so one of the priorities that schools will have to have is how to meet those demands and still manage students' expectations while providing the key information that they need. So that's going to be one priority, that schools will really have to shift their flexibility and connect with students on changing methods of communication, which has constantly changed. I mean, since, for example, since the GI Bill was enacted, or since really since the telephone was invented, since computers were invented, things have constantly had to change, and that's just one way it'll continue to need to change. Students are also changing, so they're becoming more non-traditional. We've seen many infographics that have attested to this. They have families. They're a more diverse group of students, and they expect their education to be more diverse. Schools have to offer more flexibility, different ranges of hours that they can be taught, and also offer, maybe tuition discounting for students with families. Students also bring in a wide variety of classes from different schools, so they need to have those transfer agreements to easily accept courses so that students can graduate and get their education. So one of the main things I've learned is that, the future of higher education is just more flexibility for the type of curriculum that students can enroll in, because they're a more diverse group of students. They are adults. They have different priorities, and it's no longer just the traditional age 18 to 23-year-old. Which kind of leads to my third point in the future of higher education, and that's that social justice matters, and it has to matter to schools. And we have read so many articles that touch on that the changing landscape of colleges really have to prioritize the equality across the board. And that's something that schools really, really struggle with, not only for their student populations, but for their staff and faculty populations. And I think schools have to take on that priority of making students less ignorant and championing social justice. And schools have to be on board with current movements. And I think we've seen that in this past year more so than ever, where schools seem to take on that responsibility of speaking out, whereas they might not have in, the 19th century. And I think that leads to the fourth one, probably my final sense of where higher education is coming. And it's one that I think we all know too well, and that mental health is going to be one of the forefront issues. The pandemic's taught us that, and I think there's more changes to come there. But mental health is going to be one of those things where faculty, staff, administrators will have to have training in, will have to have an understanding of, whereas used to it was a separate world. It no longer can be that way. Faculty and staff sort of have to take on this responsibility to be at the forefront of students' mental health. And this is something that schools will have to provide more free access to, more training, more the schools will be responsible for the students' mental health, I think is what the future of higher education shows. I think the entire landscape is changing administrators will have to change with it. And I think that to wrap all those 4 up schools will just have to be flexible. And COVID has put a microscope on that. The type of flexibility this past year has put a microscope on that, and it'll have to continue to be so. I really enjoyed the curriculum this semester. I've enjoyed how it's challenged the way I've looked at education from the very beginning to now. I've always been a champion of education. That's still the same, but I'm starting to realize that there are deep traditions in place that sometimes can limit access to education, and trying to figure out how to battle that in my daily life as an administrator, in financial aid, and just as a person. I think I'm learning how much more challenging that is, but this has helped me tackle it.